Thanks for tuning in. You're watching Arirang's Within the Frame. I'm Han Da-eun in Seoul. Some 100 domestic helpers from the Philippines have recently landed in South Korea as the country seeks fresh ways to alleviate the burden on working moms and address plunging birth rate. This initiative highlights Korea's broader efforts to expand its foreign workforce in response to severe labor shortages amid a rapidly worsening demographic crisis. On today's Within the Frame, we zoom in on the government's latest measures to welcome more foreign workers and also some of the key issues surrounding migrant workers here in Korea. For that, Cho Hee-kyung, professor at Hongik University's College of Law, joins us via Skype. Welcome to the program.
Hello.
And for another voice on the topic, we also have Zeljana Zmire, lecturer at Hanyang University, with us tonight. It's great to see you again.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Zmire, let's start off with you. The Employment Permit System, or EPS, first introduced in 2004, celebrates its 20th anniversary this year. What impact have foreign workers had on Korean society over the past 20 years?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. And as always, I hope that my insights would be beneficial. And I would like to apologize to your audience in advance. I'm currently located abroad in Croatia, and there might be some light disruptions, but I'll do my best. So you asked me about the EPS and about the foreign workers. So we have to acknowledge first that EPS system was introduced to replace much more severe system. That was a trainee system that envisioned absolutely zero rights for foreign workers. EPS itself was seen as a big win for the civil society in Korea. So actually the system, even though we hoped it would solve the problem initially, we actually realized that over the years there have been numerous problems. Currently, there have been around 1 million foreign workers employed in South Korea, and this includes roughly 30% of people employed under the EPS, roughly 30% of people who are ethnic Koreans, meaning Chosunjok and Koryoin, and roughly 40% of people who are employed as marriage migrants, professional workforce, etc. So this huge number, 1 million people, actually witnesses that Korean economy has been reliant on people not only in 3D fields, but also foreigners who are employed in professional fields. All across the OECD, there has been shortage in people employed in STEM, and these days in Korea in medical professions as well. So actually, in one word, the future of Korean economy depends on successful introduction and integration of foreign workers into the economy.
It certainly will have a huge impact on the Korean economy, as you mentioned. And like many other government-managed systems, the employment permit system has its pros and cons, which we'll explore in more detail as we move on. Professor Cho, the government has raised the number of E9 non-professional work visas for foreign workers under the employment permit system to 165,000 this year, which marks the highest level to date. What's the government aiming for?
Well, this is reflecting the current reality, which is that there is a huge mismatch between job seekers and the jobs that are available in the marketplace. Essentially, we actually have not a low youth unemployment numbers, and yet the kind of jobs that they want to have are not readily available in the market. Instead, the employers are actually seeking to fill low-skill, simple labor type jobs that are not attractive to local Korean native workers who are seeking higher paying, better conditioned jobs. And so to fill this gap, the government has opened up the E9 visa program, which used to be restricted very much to the 3D type jobs that Dr. Zmire mentioned earlier. And so they used to be really sort of concentrated in heavy industries, manufacturing, agriculture, fisheries, etc. But now they are opening this up to accommodation businesses, service industry, including restaurants, and so forth. And it also includes this pilot program on for nannies that they have just recently begun.
So the expansion is expected to significantly help fill job vacancies that are often avoided by Korean workers. But this time, the Korean government is also opening up the positions across various other industries as well, meaning a lot more opportunities for foreign workers as well. But the lack of necessary protections for the foreign workers involved is another important issue, which brings us to the next question. Dr. Zmire, the employment permit system was introduced to prevent discrimination between domestic and foreign workers and to ensure equal employment conditions. But as you've mentioned, it has faced significant criticism that it's leading to human rights abuses of migrant workers. Could you tell us more in detail about the underlying issues here?
Well, as I mentioned, the EPS system, even though seen as initial win of the civil society, proved to have numerous problems. And just to name the few, it is a temporary system in its nature, which means that employee can stay here only up to 5 years. And if they want to stay longer, which many of them do, then they become undocumented, meaning they effectively become illegal workers. And this is a very, very dangerous situation because then they have zero protections. And often many of them become victims of some kind of exploitation, discrimination, abuse, etc. And then the second problem is the fact that within these 5 years of legally permitted stay, they can change employer only 3 times. And this should be done only with a prior approval from their boss. So if they are a little bit unlucky, if they have met abusive employer, then highly likely they would be subjected to extortions, blackmails, etc. And actually, National Human Rights Commission has been reporting on these kind of violations. So then the solution is changing the system from being employer-centric to employee-centric, meaning that that employees, both foreigners and Koreans, they should be able to voice their concerns, demands to relevant institutions. And also this system should have zero tolerance for any form of discrimination, both gender or nationality or religion. I know this kind of system is very hard to achieve, but you know, as a proverb says, where there is a will, there is a way. So if Korea can achieve this kind of system, then this system would be advanced. It would be a system as we see in the most advanced OECD countries. And consequently, Korea can become more attractive destination for foreign workers who wish to come, who wish to contribute.
Migrant workers not being able to move their workplaces without their employer's agreement, as you pointed out, is one of the key issues that call for urgent attention. And it seems we need other alternative measures and we need them fast. And because, like you mentioned, where there is will, there will be a way. Now, Professor Cho, the hot button issue on the employment permit system is the pilot program involving some 100 caregivers from the Philippines who will start working as domestic helpers from next month. And we've learned that the program will mark the first exception to the EPS. How will the program differ from other jobs under the EPS and why?
So one huge drawback that you mentioned, and Dr. Zmire as well, under the EPS system is that the worker is typically tied or even indentured to one workplace, and the worker is not free to move or change jobs without the consent of the existing employer. In fact, it is usually the case that the worker, the migrant worker, is actually assigned or matched to one specific workplace even before he or she sets a foot in Korea. But under this pilot program for child caregivers that's being run currently, or that just begun, the worker will be actually matched with the prospective employer after the 1 month trial sort of training period that they will undergo, which has just started. And they are also able to work for more than one employer at a time. And if they find that their employer is incomparable, or the conditions are incomparable with what they're looking for whatever reason, it is possible that they can request to the employment agency that is acting as the middleman here to actually switch workplaces. So that's a big difference from the existing E9 program.
There are hopes and concerns over the Filipino Domestic Helper Initiative. Dr. Zmire, what are your prospects? And could an expansion of the program be one good way to tackle Korea's dwindling birth rate?
Well, you know, the low birth rate in Korea has been a Achilles heel of Korean society and highly likely social problem number one. So this problem is a systemic problem and it requires systemic solutions. I don't think that introducing one or two programs can actually solve the problem. However, as you know, many Korean mothers, they have been subjected to a very difficult choice. And that choice is between continuing their careers or childbirth and child rearing. I don't think that any mother should be given this kind of difficult choice. So in this respect, introducing Filipino babysitters and helpers, I think it could be a good solution. But we also need to understand that Korean parents and also foreign parents who live in Korea, all of them are concerned with the well-being of their child, especially when left alone home with a babysitter. So also from the opposite side, Filipino babysitter may be concerned about the nature of the family they enter into, whether is it safe, whether they are abusive, etc. So in this respect, Korean government agencies, they should play a very good control role to avoid any kind of safety problem. And also they should be playing a very good mediating role so that both sides have a good institution, good channel to talk to voice their concerns. Again, this initiative will not solve completely the problem of low birth rate, but it can assist Korean mothers. To solve the problem completely, we should address more systemic measures, such as more favorable welfare and labor policies.
So it could be one good way, but cannot be a fundamental solution to the plunging birth rate. Now, Professor Cho, as Dr. Zmire has briefly touched upon, there are concerns over the pilot program. Activist groups have urged the government to protect the Filipino workers from exploitation or other non-favorable working conditions. Tell us more about this and your thoughts.
Well, the domestic help labor market is a sector that is particularly susceptible to exploitation and potential abuse simply because the workplace is a private sphere, somebody's private home. And so it's not easy to subject it to open supervision or scrutiny. Now, the current pilot program that's being run by the Seoul city, I trust that there won't be so many hiccups or issues being raised in this trial program simply because the Seoul city and also the agencies that are involved will be bending over backwards to ensure that issues are resolved and resolved quickly because they want to make it into a success so that they can expand the program. But there are already pressures in terms of questions raised over the cost, the scope of duties for these child caregivers, and also the potential effect on competition in the domestic caregiver providers. And so there are many areas where there are potential frictions that might arise, and we have yet to see any real details on the kind of safety measures, the mediating role and such that the Dr. Zmire talked about, and also the Seoul City really should provide, and either directly or through the agency. Now, given that these caregivers have been almost handpicked specifically by the Filipino government, and also will be under very close supervision, I believe, by the metropolitan government and the agencies. Again, the trial program, I trust, will be running smoothly, but it's when the numbers increase, the scope increases, and more pressures are placed on the program, we will see inevitably lots of conflicts that may arise.
So the real problem may begin when we see an expansion of the numbers of foreign caregivers. Now, as you mentioned, the blurred boundaries of the Filipino helpers' tasks are one of the key problems. We need a more specific and clear set of guidelines on their tasks and on their and ways to ensure their safety as well, it seems. Now, payment for the foreign domestic helpers is another controversial issue. While some argue that they should be paid Korea's minimum hourly wage, others say that doing so would make the monthly cost too high for many Korean households. Professor Cho, what's your take?
So this is where, we have to think about the purpose of this program. If the intention of the government is really trying to raise a low birth rate through this program, it's really a non-starter, even without having to looking at the program, because A, the numbers are too small, and B, the cost is actually too high for an average middle-class family. For them to actually afford this kind of nanny from overseas. Now, it would be indefensible for us to say we're not going to apply the minimum wage to these foreign workers, particularly given that we are actually holding the chairmanship of the International Labour Organization, and we have signed up to the Anti-Discrimination Convention under the ILO that prohibits us from discriminating against foreign workers to domestic workers. But leaving that aside, the cost that is payable by the employer to these nannies are not that much lower than the existing domestic help or live-in nannies that they may be able to recruit in the domestic market. And so in terms of cost, they're not that competitive. And so even if you look at the people who've actually applied for this program, they were expecting thousands of families to apply, but currently there has only been 400 or 500 applications. So that's really sort of seeing that the kind of limitations of the program as well.
And the Korean government is looking to expand foreign workforce to tackle labor shortage and demographic crisis. Dr. Zmire, what efforts need to be made to ensure a favorable working environment for them and protect their basic rights?
Well, you asked me a very difficult question, and I think the answer is approximately $1 million word, but let me try. So as you know, when it comes to foreigners, the labor in Korea has two pillars, and one pillar relates to foreigners employed in non-professional workforce. So we speak about 3D jobs, the dirty, the dangerous, the difficult jobs that are being avoided by Koreans. And from this year, we see foreigners employed in service sector and, as Professor Choi mentioned, babysitters and caregivers. So traditionally, unfortunately, this kind of sector has been subjected to various forms of discriminations, exploitations, human rights abuses, and definitely tackling this kind of problem is a part of the solution. And then the second pillar are people employed in professional fields such as professors, researchers, people employed in big companies, people working for trade, etc. All across the OECD, there has been a shortage of this kind of, let's say, global talents working especially in STEM. And these days we witness a big shortage in Korea in medical field. We have been witnessing strikes, I think, since this April. So unfortunately, Korea has been reluctant to boost the number of foreign workers in this kind of professional fields, which is actually illogical because there has been a shortage all across the OECD, and we need to know that OECD countries, they have been engaged in so-called global war for talents. This is intensive competition to ensure the future development and innovation with highly talented domestic and foreign workers. So I really hope that South Korea moves from being reluctant toward being eager to compete with the rest of the OECD. And this cannot be done only with basic rights. This can be done with ensuring good working conditions, good living conditions, and of course, tackling discrimination so many are subjected to. So if Korea can actually be successful in this kind of difficult task, then we will contribute not only to innovation and development, but we will create a society that is more fair, more just, more inclusive, not only for foreigners, but for Koreans as well. Thank you.
So opening up and hiring more skilled foreign workers is another crucial issue that need to be addressed. And South Korea needs workers and migrant workers need jobs. So it can be a win-win, and we just need to work harder on devising and implementing measures to protect their rights and ensure favorable working conditions, right? And if I may add, the Korean public and the Korean society I think also needs to be more open-minded about welcoming in a foreign workforce. And that's where we'll conclude our discussion today. Thank you so much, Dr. Zmire, as always, for your perspectives.
Thank you.
And many thanks to you as well, Professor Cho, for your valuable insights.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in same time tomorrow to join our conversation. Goodbye for now.